Hi, Patricia. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Eric?
Feel like it's been a long time. I went back into the annals of the Hair Game podcast history. And by the way, we've been doing this now for 6 years, actually a little bit more than 6 years. We're at about 320 episodes at this point. I went back, and because I know you and I have done a number of these things, we've done two just one-on-one. Episode 56, that was in 2018.
Wow.
That's 5 years ago. And then we did another one, 149, episode 149 in 2020. And that was like 6 months into the pandemic or something, thereabouts. And so that was an interesting conversation. And then we did a couple panel episodes. We've done a couple hair shows. We did an appearance in Northern California and San Francisco. That was a lot of fun. You remember that?
I do.
So for the listeners, we're not going to get into Patricia's background. I'm going to tell you what we talked about in those episodes, episode 56 and episode 149. You can go back and listen to those. By the way, one of the most fascinating things about podcasting is that we put all this content out there. I mean, we've got, probably 400 hours of content out there. And people go back and listen to these things. Actually, if I was a really good podcast host, I would have gone back before we started talking to see how many downloads those episodes got last week.
Oh,
Even
wow.
though they're 5 years old and 3 years old, people go back and they listen. It's crazy how long a life a lot of this content has.
Yeah, and I think that just kind of shows how important it is to show up and put pieces of content out there, because you never know. I mean, like you said, something that you produced maybe a few years ago might be exactly what somebody needs to be inspired. So I love that.
100%. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about is kind of evergreen is the word. It's evergreen. It lasts forever. I mean, when we talk about things like, finding new clients, backfilling your chair, when you talk about pricing and things like that, that's never going to get old. And that's what a lot of our episodes are about. All right, so let's go back. Episode 56, we talked about your history and how you learned your extraordinary color blending technique, how you run your Instagram, which is up to 1 million followers now. We'll talk about TikTok. I'm sure that's really big, but I don't spend a lot of time there, so I can't speak to it. We talked about how you made it through a 100% price increase. I will never forget this conversation. You increased your prices 100%.
Yeah.
And of course, you lost some people, but I mean, you can lose 50% of your clients, and if you raise your prices 100%, you're still making the same amount of money working half the amount of time. And then, of course, you backfilled the other half of your time at that higher price, and it didn't take you very long to do that. And that was a very inspirational story to a lot of the listeners. So that was episode 56. And then we also talked about how you balance your family with your flourishing career. And at the time, I believe your now 5-year-old Elijah, maybe he was just born, or no. I think you were pregnant with Elijah when we had that first episode.
Yeah, because he was born in 2018 in October. So I'm trying to think, when did that air in 2018?
I think it was August of 2018. So you were about to give birth.
Oh, yeah.
I remember now. You were about to pop, and I think I made a comment about popping on air, which would have been super fun
early.
for the listeners, maybe, but not so good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then in episode 149, which was a couple months after COVID, we talked about how you handled quarantine, which was, of course, the topic of the day. We talked about the typical day behind the chair after quarantine, which was a little unusual because you're in California, and we were shut down for so long. We talked about your new position at the time, which was global ambassador with Wella. That's been a change recently for you. We're going to get into that today. We talked about your online education platform, and we talked about TikTok because TikTok was kind of new back then.
Yeah.
And we talked about what you do with that and how I think, your recommendations on people to how to get started with TikTok. So we're going to catch up now. For the listeners who don't know you, we probably don't have many listening who don't know you, but for those few who don't know you, you're a California hairdresser who focuses on high contrast hair painting. Mm-hmm. And you are newly the first ever, correct me if I'm wrong, artistic ambassador to Schwarzkopf.
Yes. And that means so much to me because I truly, truly love their brand, their best in class education, their community, just the products, everything. So it's an honor to be a part of the team.
So when I heard first ever, I thought, Schwarzkopf has never had an artistic ambassador. It seems like everybody has an. So explain that to me. What did they have, and why did they decide all of a sudden to make you artistic ambassador?
I think I would say that they had their artistic team of influencers that came together to create looks, specialty looks for campaigns. And so I think it was really important for them to find somebody who could lead that team in a way and give direction and sort of, with my experience in the industry, kind of bring that over to Schwarzkopf. And so I think the word ambassador is something they don't take lightly. And so it just happened to be with my experience, also my desire to sort of grow this brand. It just all fit together and came together perfectly.
I think you're right about the use of the word ambassador, because some brands call everybody an ambassador. Mm-hmm. If a hairstylist has some social media following, they send you some free product and they're like, thanks for being an ambassador, right?
Right.
So you see that a lot, but it's really, really cool and quite an honor for you to have this position with Schwarzkopf. We're going to get into that a little bit. I also want to mention the fact that you've got a hubby named Josh who's awesome, and he helps you do all your things, and you have kiddos. We mentioned Elijah, who's 5, which is amazing because I remember, of course, you being pregnant as we were doing the podcast, and then I remember you and Josh bringing Elijah when he was the cutest little kid. He was probably 1, and he was in his stroller, and I think you came to ISSC and we did a panel together with some other people, and Elijah was very well behaved in his stroller. But I liked his big cheeks. I poked his little cheeks.
Yeah, so, that's what we're known for in our family, is our cheeks.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I grow my facial hair to kind of try to de-emphasize my cheeks.
To shade it a little bit.
Exactly. It's like man makeup, right? That's what they call it. Facial hair is like man makeup.
But interestingly enough, that's a characteristic that people associate with youth. So I really love the fact that I have a fuller face, because then I feel like I still look a little young,
That is 100% true. I get that as well. I think I see that benefit as well for myself. So we were talking, Patricia, about your amazingly clear and yet kind of smooth resolution pictures, which complemented your hair services so well. Your painting technique, which blends just spectacularly. And you said, or I asked you a question. I said, what camera do you use? And you said, I use the iPhone 6. And it was like a record scratch across the industry, because I want to say at the time we were on iPhone 8, maybe, Apple was on 8 or 9. And everybody, of course, assumes that the latest camera is the best for taking pictures. And so everybody runs out and they spend the $1,000 every September or October with Apple to get the latest and greatest. And here you are with an old generation camera just crushing. Okay, so what are you using now?
I still use my iPhone 6 to capture
Bullshit.
my content. I do.
Are you
I have
serious?
the newest phone that I used for my personal, that I have my new phone, but then I have my iPhone 6 that I keep as my work phone. And the reason why, and I'll tell you why, because starting from iPhone 6, every time there was a new phone, I would try to use it, and I felt like, no, it's not the same as this. So I would keep it. And so it just throughout time, that's what happened. I would upgrade my phones. I didn't like the camera quality. I wouldn't say I don't like the camera quality, because I do for other things, but when it comes to hair, you need to be able to have the hair look exactly the way it is, not altered, not brightened, just exactly what the eye sees. And so for me, I found that iPhone 6 is the best tool, especially when you're capturing hair. Like, I don't use any lighting, so it's all natural light. It was just like chef's kiss.
Wow. Okay. So, and I guess I know what you're talking about to some degree, because sometimes the super duper high resolution, and I stopped paying attention to the 10 megabyte, the 15, the 28 megabyte. I don't even know what we're on now. But the super duper high resolution sometimes seems grainy. It's almost like the technology is trying to add contrast to what's happening in order to make it seem like it's a high resolution image. So amazing that you still use now. Do you upgrade the operating system on the Apple? Because I know with some of the older hardware, like an iPhone 6, they stopped supporting it with the software upgrades.
It's funny because I actually had to get the camera fixed on my phone and the battery, and they were still able to. They still had the parts. They were still able to service the phone, which was great. Because it's really hard to find these phones. Wow. And so I got basically like a brand new iPhone 6. And I do believe I'm still able to update the operating system.
Okay.
I think iPhone 6 is the last one. I don't think you can go back any further than that.
So what are you going to do when next year? I guess you just don't upgrade.
I don't upgrade, and because I just use it for, I use it like an iPod basically. I just use it for the camera. So I don't really need to do anything. I mean, I don't work with it besides that. So,
well, that is utterly fascinating, and I'm sure. I mean, I'm surprised. I assumed that that Josh would have overanalyzed and found something new and expensive to have started using, but same old iPhone 6. That's amazing.
Well, because with just, having so much time on social media and, being there when videos started, pictures, all of that, we realized for our page that the iPhone footage did way better than even, using a camera or so. And I think it goes back to the metadata that's in the picture attached to it. So it wants you to be mobile, like on your mobile device, taking pictures, uploading it. And so it rewards you for that. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Okay, everybody, you heard it here. She's still using the iPhone 6.
And natural light.
Did you get special insurance for the iPhone 6 so nobody steals it? You almost have to, it could get kidnapped. That's a valuable thing.
So I actually have I have a few iPhone 6s that I found that I kind of just put away. So if something happens to one, then I have another one. So I always have a backup.
Redundancy. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You build redundancy in your business.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so let's, natural light. I do want to talk about that really quick.
Sure.
Everybody knows what natural light is. It seems pretty clear that you've got natural light coming in from behind you as you're holding the camera onto your client. What else? Okay, actually, I'm trying to think about what the listeners want to know specifically. It's just a normal window, right? With sunlight coming in from behind you. What about the time of day? Because I know this affects, we have a lot of salons, right? And some salons face south, some salons face east, northwest. And the light coming in at different times of day can affect you taking a picture.
So I would say for me, I have always been social media first. So I've always been, I decided early on that I was going to be a content creator. So then I had to decide what that looked like for me and for my business. So I would still take my clients and I would take the ones that I wanted to video or take pictures of. I would take them earlier so that way I had the time to be able to finish them, get the content I needed. And then if it started getting darker and I still had clients, then, maybe we would wait for another day. But then as my business grew and it became more and more social media focused, centered, then I just completely worked with the sun. So I have them come in early enough for me to be able to finish, for me to be able to have natural light. And also my studio has it has a wall of windows. So the tricky part of having a wall of windows is that sometimes you have more light. You always have enough light unless it's like pitch black outside. So you have to learn how to balance that light. And I do that with shears, white shears, and you want to make sure that those shears are matte, so that way the light is not reflective when it comes to the window.
So you're talking about window coverings.
Yeah,
like
you just want to
curtains?
control the light. Yep, like if you notice, there'll be panels that are darker or maybe tan, or and then you have the shears that maybe go as a filler between those panels. That's what I have all across my room. So that way I'm able to control the light and balance it in a way that's really, it just looks really dreamy and airy, and that's exactly the kind of lighting I like.
Very smart. Okay, so I know that IKEA makes these panels and they slide, right?
Yep. You just have them go all the way across, and you sort of move them where you need them. If you find that you're facing an area that has a lot of light, then you can double up on your panels, so that way you can control them or slide them together. But you have to think, I have a wall of windows, so my panels have to go all the way across. And then also you can get something called V-flats, which are they have a dark and a light side that you can stand up, and that way you can really position your lighting and bounce that lighting if you need more shadow, if you need more brightness. So it's just a cool way to really enhance your photography or your videography.
And the clients that you're taking pictures of, these are paying clients.
Yeah, so most of my models, okay, I have a story. So I did something unique.
Okay.
Instead of doing a model call, a lot of the content I was getting early on in my career were of my clients. And so I said, hey, I'll give you, a little bit of a discount. Do you mind? And this was early on, right? Do you mind if I video your appointment? They're like, sure, no problem, because that incentivizes them to take the extra time that I might need to be able to get the shots I need. So over time, that just became, now it's like, if you're my client, you already know that your day is going to be centered around getting social media content, and nobody minds. Like, I think the industry has changed so much that if you're going to an appointment, you almost expect that this is going to happen.
Right. Okay.
And people come with their makeup on, ready to go, because they want to be seen in, the best possible light.
Right. So they know it. They probably, they know it. They expect that they probably enjoy it. And how much extra time would you guess it's adding to the typical appointment?
That's a good question. So we came up with a shot list. I have a workflow that I use of the way that I structure my content that I know does well on my page. So sometimes I've tried to do different things, and I just notice it doesn't do well. People love consistency. They love seeing things be. If you watch some of your favorite cooking channels, or even some of your favorite artists that are doing well on social media and that are hair artists, you notice they have the same sort of flow throughout all of their videos. It's consistent. So for me, I found my flow, and so it only adds actually maybe an additional 10 to 15 minutes to my workflow, because I already know what shots I need to get, and so we're laser focused on that. And I don't video the whole appointment. I know exactly what I need to get so I can work in real time.
Okay. So that's not that big of a deal.
No.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Hopefully I've asked all the questions that the listeners are wondering about the technical things that you do behind the scenes that produces the magic that you put out there that everybody loves so much. I want to get into opportunities, because you've been doing a great job of attracting and choosing opportunities for yourself to kind of expand your career, kind of beyond the chair. I mean, you're still behind the chair, but you've got other things happening. So you were with Wella years and years ago. That was a very special thing that you got at the time. And now you're with Schwarzkopf. How do these opportunities come about? Are they inbound? Are these brands reaching out to you? Are you proactively seeking relationships out there and soliciting, a deeper formal relationship where, there's money? Or how does it work?
So I would say that I have always been pretty active in the industry. And because I've been active in the industry, it's allowed me to meet a lot of people and build relationships. So even if, let's just say I wasn't working with, a certain brand, they still knew who I was. And so they could sort of follow my journey and watch what I was doing. And I think from there, the opportunities just presented themselves. And that's what I would say for anybody that is watching this is make sure that you are building your community, because a strong community is so valuable and so sought after in this industry. Make sure that you're showing up and that you're posting quality content, and that you just, I would say, always find a balance in your life, but social media is definitely a priority. And also, if there's somebody you want to work with, make sure you're tagging them, you're creating looks, and you're doing that in a way so that way people can see who you are and see you being talented. And I think also for me, having such a strong emphasis on education, my community, building and fostering relationships, all of that is what got me through and brought me to where I am.
So the listeners are thinking, all of that makes sense, but I've got, my bread and butter is doing clients behind the chair. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'm ever going to get to 1 million followers, much less 50,000 followers. So why spend so much of my time on social media? Why not just focus on my clients?
Well, this will allow you to grow your business behind the chair. Social media that was the reason why I even started, was because there was a need. There was a need for me to fill my chairs. And we're talking all the way back to MySpace. That's when I started on social media. Yep. Because I had 2 small kids and I couldn't go out and meet people in person. And so this allowed me to fill the need, fill my books, fill my space. And it just allowed me to keep record of all of, I remember I was taking pictures on my digital camera and uploading them onto MySpace. That's because for me, it was really important to be able to see my work from start to finish. And then that just sort of fueled this fire in me that kept me there and kept me moving forward. Yeah. So, you can use social media it doesn't have to be just to build a following. It could be to build your books. It could be to specialize. It could be to tell your clients you have sales on retail. You just have to think about how it fits in your life. Yeah.
I think that's a really good answer. I think it's important for people to understand that even if they have 0 followers, if they have good content up there, a client is somebody who wants what you're posting is going to reach out to you, right?
Yeah, and I always heard, post what you love to do. And so, for me, I love to create multidimensional looks. So it was already, when people come to me, they're like, whatever you do, whatever that is, I want that. And so now it put the power back in my hands, because I can become the stylist and I can advise them on which way they should go. It just made my business so much better, and I love it.
All right, so let's get into TikTok.
Yep.
You're on TikTok.
Yes.
And how much time is Josh helping you out with this?
No, he doesn't help. So he creates all the content for me. So he is there, he films everything. What I found is, especially with Reels, so when we were doing the IGTV and we were doing the longer form content, he would actually edit all of that, because he would have a minute or so to create overlays and do all of that. Now what I found is that longer form videos don't really do well on my page. So we had to do shorter content, 17 seconds. And in that time, I started including my voice and doing voiceovers. So I was telling my own story. And that's what became wildly successful. So I think it's just, he definitely has to be there full time with me to get exactly the angles that I want. But then I took over the editing.
Got it.
And then I also respond to all my comments. I do everything on my end.
Which is a ton of time. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You get 200 comments, and that could take you an hour and 15 minutes, right? And that's just one post. Yeah. So for the listeners who have an Instagram, they've, put consistent time into it, enough to have a page that looks good enough to attract clients and stuff. But they haven't spent much time on TikTok and they can't really find a place in their schedule to fit it in. What do you recommend to them?
I would recommend just bringing over whatever you're posting on Instagram and take it over, post it on TikTok. And then what I found is that the traction on TikTok really varies. I feel like Instagram, it's pretty consistent. TikTok does vary just because their algorithm's a little bit harder to identify. So I would say really, really heavily focus on Instagram. I did a poll actually about what was the favorite app to use, and everyone said hands down they loved Instagram. So I think keeping Instagram front and center is important, focusing on those, and then moving over maybe. So I always say get back to your comments within the first hour. Respond, reach out, talk to people, communicate. And then after that hour, then maybe you can move over to TikTok and then see what comments you need to go to from there.
Okay.
It's a job. It's a full, it's definitely an investment of time, and I do it every day, right. But I love it. It's an honor. So
good. Have you had any problems with haters or anything like that?
On my pages, thankfully, no.
That's good.
I'm very lucky. And, I just, I really feel for people that struggle with online bullying, because I know it's a real thing, and I know it can be very detrimental to mental health. And so, for me, I just try to keep my page very positive early on, and it worked.
Yeah, that's great. So at this point in your career, things are going pretty well. What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Wow.
Other than Josh's snoring, what keeps you up?
Thinking about, so here's the thing. I would say that I'm constantly thinking of new ways to achieve different looks, but still have it look like painted hair. So I went from, hair painting, which I love and I still do, but I grew it into more foil based, where it still looks like the hair is painted, but now it reaches a whole new level of stylists who only use foils. And so, I'm constantly thinking of new formulas. I just have hair on my mind like 24 hours a day. So that's what keeps me up at night, honestly. And then also, am I going to get enough sleep for tomorrow? Yeah. Keeps me up at night.
Right. That's funny. Yeah. Sleep anxiety, where your anxiety is keeping you up, but the anxiety is because you're afraid of being up.
Yes. Yeah. Because I'm like, I need 8 hours.
Right. Same.
Yeah. I don't know how people do it. If I get like 5 hours, I'm going to pay for it. So I know I have to go to bed at exactly when Elijah goes to bed, and
Yeah, same. So you're still seeing clients behind the chair. Oftentimes when we have guests on the show, their careers have really changed. They started as a hairstylist behind the chair, and they sometimes have evolved into a content creator, right? Or an educator who spends 95% of their time flying around or creating content to educate. You're still behind the chair not all the time, but what percentage of the time are you still behind the chair doing paying clients?
I try to be there at least 4 days a week.
Okay, so you're still full-time for the most part. Any change in behavior from clients, recently in the last 6 months or whatever? Anything you notice?
I would say, so one thing that I've noticed is that when I started taking these clients, they were very set on what they wanted to see. They didn't want warmth in their hair. They wanted, and so now that I have, I've been able to present more of a wider portfolio to them of colors, it's kind of opened their eyes. I've been able to give them consultations on what they might want to try maybe. And so I feel like within 6 months, just being able to really focus on being more creative and them being receptive to it. And that comes from me posting something that might be, a red look, and they never thought they would want to go red. And now they're inspired to try to change up their hair. Mm-hmm. So I would say for me, but most of all, like I have the best relationship with my clients because I've had them throughout my whole career, and they've stayed consistent with me and I've stayed consistent with them. And that goes back into education too. So we'll talk about that.
Right. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get into that.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, to kind of summarize what you just said, you've been kind of expanding your repertoire.
Yeah.
And your clients are becoming a little bit more receptive to these new things because they're seeing it on your social media, which is really important. And of course, this is all stemming from you tossing and turning at night, trying to figure out how to do different looks and not getting your 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I'm like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do that. How can I really make the face lighten up? Or, I just think of all, exactly what you said.
All of those things. Okay, so let's talk about the education. Where are you educating these days?
So right now I have my online education, which is thepaintroom.com. And I go once a month, I go live, or I have pre-recorded classes and I do Q&As. I talk about everything. I talk about, really, my education is look-based education versus like just technique-based, because I want people to be able to create full looks and have the formulas and everything that they need. So for me, we have almost 300 hours of education on there. So I've really been busy with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so 4 days behind the chair, and then 1 or 2 days additionally with the education, or do you maybe work for 3 weeks behind the chair and then you take 1 week and you guys bust it out?
So we keep our portfolio. I mean, we keep our library of all of the content we've produced. So when it was during COVID, I was going on sometimes twice a week, and I would have videos. And then right when we came back, I was still in that routine where I was doing a class once a week. And instead of taking a client one day, I would work 3 days, and I'd have one day where it would just be filming or going live. So as time went on, we built up this massive portfolio, and we're still investing in that portfolio by doing live classes every month, Q&As, things like that.
And when you do the live classes, you promote them, I assume, on your social media and encourage people to come. Are those free for people to join, or do you pay money and then you have like a password? How does that work?
So I have a website that hosts my online education, and so it is an investment, but we tried to keep it priced as the same as an in-person class ticket. So that way we were giving value to stylists, and it would be something that, would be easily accessible to them.
And pretty amazing that we in the industry can do that now, right? Somebody in Uzbekistan can get online and they can watch you and learn from you, right? That's just so spectacular.
And ask questions in real time. So if I'm working on a client and they can type, what formula was this again? Or what was that placement? Where did that look? Can you show me? And so we can pivot to make it education that's tailored to them during the live. And then Josh goes back and he condenses the video. So not only are they watching it live, but then they're getting these tutorials. It's actually amazing how he works so hard on that.
And how long is one of these sessions?
So whenever I'm going live, it can be a full session. It could be 3 or 4 hours. And
do you take breaks? You have to go to the bathroom.
We do. And so if we'll pause, we'll say, okay, we're going to take a break here, or she's going to process for 20 minutes. So we do. But it's so funny because people are so thirsty for education, and they will be working with, they'll tell their client, hey, I have to watch this class. I can't miss it. And so they'll set up their phone and they'll actually watch the class while they're working on a client. And then the client's like, oh my gosh, my stylist is so invested in her education. And it just gives them, it makes the client feel like, wow, my stylist is amazing. She's up on her education and I'm getting the best service here. So it was really cool.
And so you're filming this in your studio?
Yep, my studio is full-time content.
Right. Boy, that's just so cool. There's so many. Are you on YouTube?
I am, and we're actually, so the set that you see right now, we have a pretty large space, And so we are going to actually move where I'm working and creating content for the hair. We're going to move that into another room that we have and redo all of that. And then we're going to build out a content studio where we could really focus on YouTube and bring that to life. YouTube is one of those platforms where there has to be, I wouldn't say a huge investment, but you definitely want to do things right. So that way the material and the content comes out, you know, I wouldn't say perfect, but you want to make it as like easy to watch. You want to set your stage. And so, I mean, with everything, you just want to do it right.
Yeah. Higher production quality.
Higher production. Like. There you go.
Yeah. It seems like that's what people are doing these days, and kind of raising the bar, right, of the digital education thing, which is so cool to see, giving more options for hairstylists to learn. What do you think about the in-person education thing? I mean, I don't know if there's more or less. I was about to say, you know, there's less of it, but I have no idea. That would be a total guess. I obviously through the quarantines and the shutdowns and the pandemic and stuff, all of that stopped. And I know just in my anecdotal conversations with people who spearheaded a lot of this education, you know, prior to 2020, a lot of them were like, boy, I really like not traveling all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what a pain to travel all the time. So I don't know if there's more or less in person, but what's your thinking on that? Do you think it's the digital has converged in terms of quality with the in-person, or do you think there's in-person still has certain things that digital will never be able to deliver?
I think that they both have a place. There are people who just love the in-person experience, and so you have to be able to make that available for them to learn. And to your point, I think it was really hard for me because there were so many areas where people wanted my education that it would have been impossible for me to leave behind the chair and leave my educational platform and then travel and then have all of the other responsibilities I had. So this was right before COVID, when we didn't even know COVID was going to happen. We were like, we need a place for stylists to come that's well done to give them education, because a lot of them are like me, moms, dads, they have families, have obligations, they have salons, or they just can't do it. And so we want to make sure that they have education at their fingertips. And we were also doing in-person classes at the time. So I love both. I mean, I think being able to shake someone's hand in person and hear their story and have them meet me and watch live is so valuable. And actually it's coming back. I think that there is a need for people to come together and to build their communities in person as well. And so they both have a place.
Yeah, absolutely. What about hair shows? Have you been doing any?
Oh yeah. I just did the Behind the Chair show and in Nashville. So that was on tour. That was pretty cool. And so I'm going to be a part of them a lot more. And again, it's just having that face-to-face sort of interaction with people.
Yeah. That's hard to beat that. Yeah, and I think that was the perfect way to describe it. They each have their pros and cons, and it just depends on what people need, you know, from education and how it fits into their lives. It's just great to have all those options.
Exactly, and having the option, because you would say some people they feel like this is their way to get away. Mm-hmm. So being able to buy a flight and go somewhere and see one of their favorite educators, it's really important to them. And so we're going to be back on that routine where we're going to have some in-person classes, and we're going to do it in a really awesome way, which I'm excited to announce soon.
I hope so. That would be amazing. All right. So you're still behind the chair, and you've been behind the chair for a number of years. Give us the most difficult conversation you've ever had with a client behind the chair.
I would say really it always boils down to people coloring their hair with dark hair color and thinking I want to go lighter. And then we try to go lighter and we do a strand test and all of these things. And then them just not grasping the fact that it's not going to be possible for them, because sometimes it isn't possible. And, you know, they feel very let down, but you have to really be honest with them and tell them. And so I think that would probably be the hardest conversation I had, is just telling someone like, hey, I'm so sorry, you're not going to be able to achieve what you think you want. And also pricing.
So what would you say, are you saying that the difficult conversation of, I need to raise my prices, and then they respond, or what?
I would say, so if you want, we can go back a little bit into that conversation we had about when I raised my prices like 100%. Mm-hmm. So I was so passionate about creating my painted hair technique and really fine-tuning it. And so I would give my clients a little bit of a break and say, hey, you can come in and get this full service, but you kind of have to let me do what I want to do, which worked out amazing, because of course I'm going to give my clients beautiful hair, right? But this is my way to work on them and them still give me the time. So I did that, and then all of a sudden I was perfecting it, I was teaching it, and then I still had all of my clients that never left, that always stayed with me at this rate. And I'm like, okay, something's got to change here, because, you know, now I have people that are charging double, triple what I'm charging, and I'm performing these amazing full services. And so I had to have the conversation one by one with them, like, hey, I'm going to have to double your price. And I did it because I didn't want to go like $20 here and then next year $20, and then it would take me forever to get there. So the way that I worded it was, I'm so, you know, happy that I've been able to give you such a good rate, you know, but now it's, and actually what helped me do that is I moved into my own studio, my own, I had my own space, which was a lot more overhead. Yeah. So I said, you know, I'm going to have to raise it to this price. And I lost 70% of my clientele. Yeah. And I cried about it. And I had a hard time, because I built these relationships and I felt like, oh my gosh, they don't, you know, I felt like I did something wrong. So what happened was it opened up my books for me to be able to charge higher prices for people that couldn't get in before. Yeah. And then the clients that left, they were like, I'm not getting the same service anywhere else. So they came back and they were like happy to pay my prices, and it all worked out.
There you go. And about how long would you say that it took for it, quote, all to work out? I mean, did you, you know, when you lost 70%, I'm sure you were like, you know, and that was in the first month or whatever, 2 months. Well, over the course of like maybe 2 months, because your clients have to like come in right over time, and then they fall away, you know, one at a time. But what was it, 6 months until you're able to backfill? Was it 9 months until a lot of those people who went somewhere else ended up coming back? Like, how long was it until you're like, okay, that was definitely the right decision?
So luckily I had an assistant who was taking all my calls and booking my appointments for me. And so because I had such a large book of clients and I didn't have a lot of wiggle room, she would create a waiting list for me. And so when somebody said I can't rebook for that appointment or I can't come in, then she would fill that spot with my waiting list. So it happened to where I was able to really just sort of work through it. But I would say, like, I just truly love the people in my life, whether it's my clients, it's my family. I love hard. And so to have someone say, I'm so sorry, I can't come see you anymore, I was like devastated, heartbroken. Sure. So it wasn't about refilling it. It was about, you know, like, they're going to go somewhere else. But then they came back and it was fine. Right. And then I became so busy that it's like now I can barely see them once a year.
Wow. Okay. So you backfilled as you were losing. That's what I heard you say, right?
I did. I had a waiting list of people that were ready to come in. You know, the way that they would get on the waiting list, we say you have to be available. And, you know, if we call you, it might be the day of, and people would say, no problem, just put me on the list. And so she would go down the list and I was constantly booked.
Love it. That's awesome. Who's inspiring you right now in the industry?
I would say, you know, who's really inspiring me is, I would say Guy Tang.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because, you know, he was there from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And he's someone who's always stayed true to himself. And he's somebody who made a name for himself and just is doing all the things that he's passionate about. And he has a wonderful relationship, and you know, he's just living his life.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that it's really authentic. And so that's something that I really, really appreciate about him.
Absolutely. He's been an icon for so long, and inspiration for so long. And I don't say so long to say that he's old, because he's definitely not old.
No.
But he has. I mean, it's been, maybe 12 plus years since he's been inspiring that many people. But yeah, that's really neat to hear you say. So I've asked you this question before, but that was 3 years ago. Actually, I don't know if I asked you this 3 years ago. I probably did. But this is the wave the wand question. So I'm going to give you back the wand, and you can wave it and change anything about the industry at all right now. What would it be?
I would say there's such a push for community, and I think taking the competitiveness out of it. I mean, competition is good because it keeps you on your toes, it keeps you growing, but I feel like, you know, just the competitive nature of social media and the algorithm itself is something that's so challenging. I think that we can all grow in a way if we support each other and show up and really be intentional with how we spend our time. I would love to see just, again, more community building. That's something that I would love to really bring to life.
There's positive and negative competition, right? The positive competition encourages everybody to do better and kind of prevents burnout. Yeah, right. It gets people
balance,
keeps people engaged, and all those types of things. Negative competition makes people feel bad, and makes them want to recede into, you know, their room by themselves and all of that, and it makes certain people kind of ugly towards each other.
Yeah, and you know, I think of people that are in a high position in the industry that, you know, I mean, if you have an ego or if you just have this competitive spirit about you that is, to your point, a negative, could be negative, then think about the people that are just coming in or are probably looking up to you. They're going to feel like, how am I ever going to compete with that? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's always good to have competition because, again, it's gonna push you forward, but it needs to be positive. And so I think for me, that's what I try to focus on in my career, and what I'm doing is just always pushing out that positivity, and because it hasn't always been easy for me, mm-hmm. right? I've had a lot of adversity in my life, but the reason why I'm positive is because I know that every single day I have to be grateful for the opportunities that I have, big or small, mm-hmm. and just take it a day at a time.
100%. Mm-hmm. You must have some updated hair horror stories. Everyone who does color and everyone who creates content has hair horror stories.
Okay, I have to be the first one to say that I do not have a hair horror story.
Oh, boo.
I try to be as responsible as possible. I'm a healthy hair specialist.
Where's Josh? I bet he's got some.
I just try to create art. You know, I'm an artist. If I wasn't doing hair, I'd be a painter on canvas. I'd be painting murals or something. So everything that I do is intentional, and I try to always be educated on what my clients need. And so, I mean, I specialize in healthy hair, so I can't really say anything about that.
Wah, wah, wah. Donovan's gonna put in some soundbite here. Wah, wah, wah.
Where's the down? And you had the up, the thumbs up. Now we need a thumbs down.
Hold on. Okay.
No, I won't do it.
It's
See? Because it's all
Boom.
positive for me. Oh.
Here we go. Boom to the no. Oh, look at this.
And it's raining.
Thunderstorms. Okay, for the listeners.
Because you have to. That's so funny.
Yes, for all of you listening in your car as you're driving to the salon, as Patricia and I talk about what you're not seeing, our platform here has these kind of what are these even called? Like, I don't know, effects, visual effects.
Yeah, these crazy effects where the thumbs are up and down and it's raining and storming.
Yeah, when the thumbs are down and then thumbs are up and there's fireworks and stuff. You have to go to YouTube to watch this, by the way. That's because this is going to be on YouTube.
That's so funny. So what I'll say is that every client that I do, I create content with. So the content has to be like perfect because I'm pushing it out. So that's
all right. Fine.
Can't mess up.
Still boo. All right. Any last words for the community?
I would say just show up on social. I would say get as much education as possible, especially from the artists that you look up to, because that's just how you're going to be stronger overall, and that's how you're really going to be able to charge more. That's how you're going to be able to give back. The more educated you are, the more that you're going to be able to create beautiful looks, the more you're going to be able to showcase that and then go from there. So the sky's the limit for you.
Never stop learning. This is that industry where you never stop. Maybe every industry is like this, but never stop learning. And those who tend to kind of feel stuck and disenfranchised with the industry, they tend to be the ones that don't get themselves out there learning. And you don't even have to get yourselves out there anymore. You could just, you instead of out there, you're in there. You could stay in there, but get some education digitally, right?
Yep.
It's all there.
Exactly.
Well, it's so good to see you. And I'm glad to see that everything is good with you and your family. And hope to see you at a hair show one of these days soon.
Yeah. Oh, and I have a little update.
Okay.
So you were talking about Elijah, and I have 2 older children. My oldest will be 21.
Amazing.
And then my middle daughter, they both graduated. My son's a Marine. And then my middle daughter, she is actually following in my footsteps. And she is going to apprentice and get her license. So she's going to work with Josh and I full time.
Wow.
And she's going to be a part of my painted hair team. And I'm just I remember when I was early on and I was taking clients even at my house. So I would leave and then I would have my friends and they'd be like, do my hair. And I was pregnant with her.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, God, I wish she, I hope and I dream and I pray that she'd want to be a part of this industry because it is one of the best industries in the world. And at first she loved horses so much and had no interest in hair. And then one day she said, Mom, I really love hair. I think I'm going to. And then so I gave her the opportunity.
So at what age was that where she switched from a horse lover to a hair lover?
Well, I had the conversation with her. I said, you have to have a career to support those horses because
they're expensive.
They're expensive. And so you have to really start thinking about what it is that you're interested in and what you're passionate about. And during, I think she was around 16, where her friends had asked her, like, they assumed she could do hair because I'm her mom. So like, could you please just, do like a color on my hair? And so she did that. And from there she was hooked.
Wow. Very cool.
And she said, I want to do this. I could do this all the time. I love it. So it was amazing.
Well, congratulations. I mean, that is quite the dream. And so your wishes are fulfilled. And so that's really, really neat that you're going to have your daughter with you.
Yeah, it means a lot. So, and you'll meet her.
And thank your son for being a Marine and serving the country. That's also very special.
Thank you. I will for sure.
All right. Great to see you again. Hope to see you soon.
Great to see you too. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.